Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Life Reset Collective. My name is Josh. On this channel, we support individuals rebuilding their lives after loss, trauma, burnout, or major life transition. Through soul deep encouragement, sacred wisdom, and practical life tools, we walk with you as you begin again with intention, self compassion, and courage. We believe healing is nonlinear, that everyone deserves a second chance, and that your story isn't over. This is just the beginning of the next chapter. And today we're going to talk about how to solve your life problems. Okay, how do I solve my problems in life? And I was talking about this with someone today, and I think that this is really important. Someone asked me today, how do you, Josh, go about solving the problems in your life? How do you learn to prioritize them? How do you figure out what to do first? Okay. This basically is talking about creating a hierarchy of situations in your life that need your attention. Okay. How do you rank order all of your problems in such a way that will allow you to best solve them? Okay, this is a really good question, and I think that it's hard to explain and hard to conceptualize. And I'm going to go through this with you today because I have a method for how I do this, and I want to share it with you. Okay. So the first thing to understand about this is that you don't solve all your problems by sprinting at everything, right? You solve them by tracing each problem to its root, choosing the right level to act on today, and then taking consistent action without getting trapped in a system whack-a-mole, basically, like a symptom whack-a-mole. And I'm going to start this off with just a few questions, okay? Number one, have you ever felt like you're trying super hard in your life, but nothing seems to change? Have you ever felt like you're solving symptoms, but somehow not solving the causes of those symptoms? Well, that's exactly what I want to help you to avoid, okay? I want to show you the exact methods that I've used to trace problems to the root, then decide what to fix first so your life can actually start moving forward again, okay? Band-aids are useful sometimes, but they're not surgery. We don't just want to put a Band-aid on the problem and call it good, because then the problem will just keep reappearing, right? So, let's reframe the question just a little bit. I want you to think about this. I want you to think about these statements for a minute, and I want you to kind of like let them resonate. You can't solve every problem at once. This is just the truth of it. But you can solve problems in a way that stops them from multiplying. And that's kind of what we want to do by getting to the root cause of the issue. The goal is to stop living in reaction mode at some point, right? And actually, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But then I want to use a three-part approach to this process of solving problems. We want to identify, we want to trace, and then we want to choose the action level of the solution. Okay. So those are the three things: identify, trace, choose action level. And I'm going to explain what those mean in just a minute. So let's talk about this method, this identify, trace, choose. Okay. Step one, identify the real problem. We need to name the problem clearly. Okay. So to do this, we can ask ourselves, what is actually happening? How is this actually affecting my life? When does this seem to show up the most? These are some questions that can get you started on figuring out the root cause, okay? Most people describe a feeling. They'll say something like, I feel overwhelmed, okay? Instead of a problem statement, which is like, my schedule is unmanageable, or I just don't get enough sleep because of my schedule, or whatever, right? I personally have, like, in my more recent past, before my divorce, this last divorce, like, I've been in 2 complete life resets, both times due to divorce. And in my more previous situation, I was truly facing a problem of like, I am never happy. I have no energy. I'm always at the very fringes of sanity. Like, that's how I felt. Turns out there was like energy vampire situations going on in my life, hardcore. And unfortunately, the hard truth I had to deal with was that these things were not starting inside of me. They were starting in the people around me and in the situations that were being created around me that I didn't even have control over. There were people creating situations in my life, right in my home, that were literally draining me before I could even figure out what was wrong. And I had to I basically tried everything I could to sidestep the main problem, which was that this relationship was a toxic environment for me. But unfortunately, I spent a lot of time trying to treat the symptoms, trying to organize my sleep schedule better, trying to, meditate, trying to practice inner peace. But this only did me so much good. And once the people around me started doing these things again, these things that caused the problem, all of my efforts would just go out the window and all the problems would come back. It was very maddening, but it took me looking at the main root cause, which is hard to do sometimes. But it took me looking at that to really realize what was going on and why I felt so like at the edge of sanity all the time, right? So this is basically identifying the problem. Okay, now let's move on to step 2. Trace the problem to the root. Okay, you want to explain in your life, identify, figure out symptoms versus root causes. Okay, the symptoms are kind of what you see and almost the feelings you feel, right? But the root cause is what is generating it. So you want to figure out a way to trace the symptoms back to what is causing them. Sometimes this is very difficult. Sometimes this causes us to have to look at things in our life, and these situations are not fun to look at. These situations can be very difficult, and it can be hard to trace them. So here are some things that I have done in the past to try to help do this. I have done a lot of talking to myself, right? I'll state the problem, like I am so stressed to the max all the time. And then I'll ask myself, okay, what are all of the things that have happened today that have pushed you to that point? Like when you first woke up, when did it start happening? What led to it? And then I start naming that. And then we go a step back further. It's like, okay, were those things, did you cause those things? Could you take action to prevent them? If not, then who is causing them and why are they not preventable, right? So it could be that it's an environmental problem, not an inner problem in you, that kind of thing, right? So it's like we want to trace it back. We want to ask ourselves questions, trying to get to the root of the problem, okay? You can also journal about this if you're not really one for self-talk. You can talk to a trusted friend about it, though I will admit sometimes this is harder and sometimes this yields less satisfactory results because sometimes people don't understand our situations, and people can also really sometimes give us bad advice because if they don't understand the situation, they've never been through it. Sometimes they truly will mislead you with bad advice, and they don't even mean to do it, but this can happen. Okay. Another thing is you can talk to a therapist. You can also even talk to ChatGPT to help clarify things. Like I've done a lot of this. I've talked for hours to ChatGPT. Sometimes it's not even about hearing what ChatGPT has to say about it, though that can be reaffirming. But sometimes it acts as a catalyst for getting the things out and just having the conversation. Sometimes I feel like if I talk to ChatGPT, it's a little bit more like a conversation and less just like inner mental dialogue. And so I feel like I get more accomplished that way. But anyway, those are some things you can do, okay? But you've got to ask yourself the hard questions, okay? What is the problem? What is this problem costing me? When did this pattern start? What am I avoiding, fearing, or not admitting about this problem? This is a hard one, okay? And then if I fixed one deeper thing, what else would improve automatically, right? So you can also compound your why questions. And so, for example, it's like, why did I feel stressed today? Well, it started when so-and-so acted passive-aggressive to me over breakfast. Why did that passive aggression likely happen? They were mad that I didn't do something they wanted me to do. Why didn't you do the thing they wanted you to do? Because they never told me about it and it didn't matter to me and it didn't seem like a big deal, right? So you might say that. And then you might say, why? So you just keep asking why and keep going back. And what you might realize, friend, is that situation at the breakfast table, you might try to do mental gymnastics to figure out how you can fix it. But the truth is, it is also possible. And we have to take into account that the other person is actually like just not acting right, not communicating, getting mad over things that they shouldn't get mad over, causing undue stress in your life, right? We need to be open to the fact that we might be causing some problems. We also need to be open to the fact that other people might be causing the problems, okay? With that being said, we move on to step 3. We need to decide what to solve today, okay? So choose. We've done identify, we've done trace, now we do choose. Choose what we're going to start working on, okay? Finding the root doesn't always mean that you can or should attack it immediately as the problem, because sometimes this is really deep and difficult. Sometimes you need to do a lot of work. Sometimes you need to do a lot of preparation to attack a core life problem, okay? But there's some stuff we can go through here. So there are basically 2 levels to work at. There's the root level, which is deep, involves deep change, identity, sometimes changing our identity. I don't mean like literally changing our identity, but like sometimes our identity is tied up to our life. And if we act on the root problem, it's going to significantly change our life. So this is a root level problem. A lot of times root level problems will bring up trauma. There will be patterns that need to be changed. There might be beliefs or values in the mix. There might be boundaries that need to be redrawn, very deep boundaries. So these are sometimes very hard problems to face. These are the kind of problems I'm talking about here are you realize you're married to the wrong person, or you realize you're at the wrong job, or you realize that spending time with your family who you've grown up with is toxic for you. So these are very big, difficult problems, these root problems, but there's also symptom level work that we can do. So this could mean like stabilizing, stopping the bleeding, creating safety and traction, etc. Okay. And I actually have a book, my Life Reset Framework, 9 Steps to Begin Again. This ebook actually goes through the steps required for a life reset. And this is actually fits really well into treating kind of like symptom level problems and then working your way to root level problems. And I'm going to show that to you here in just a minute. So now this ebook, once again, this is available for free. I offer this for free to people. This is my 9-step framework that I've used to help me successfully reset my life twice. In my life experiences, both times due to divorce, but divorce is not the only reason maybe you have to reset your life. But here is the framework that I use, and I want to go through these steps, okay? So step 1, stabilize your space and body, okay? Step 2, reconnect with your body. Step 3, grieve and get clear. Right? You got to get clarity on actually what's going on and what happened. Number 4, forgive and begin again. There's a forgiveness element of this, both for yourself and for others. Step 5, take charge of your resources. So here we're beginning like a strategic moving forward status. 6, anchor into the sacred. There's a lot of peace. There's a lot of healing and fixing that can come from anchoring into sacred things like religion, faith, etc. Step number 7, reimagine what's possible. Step 8, reclaim joy and aliveness. And step 9, build forward with rhythm. So that's actually where you start making forward momentum, okay? And these are all steps to take when you are changing your life. And then when you change your life, a lot of times you have to take a step back, hence life reset. You need to reset somehow. And so these steps might come into play for every change you make in your life. And they're also nonlinear. So you might take them in different order, and that's very understandable. And sometimes it's important to take them in the order that just makes the most sense for what you have going on at the moment. But you can download that if it would be of help to you, and you can kind of read more in depth about those steps. But that is the process. Deciding what to solve today is kind of step 1. And then step 2, you actually need to deploy the change or deploy the solution, which is going to involve some level of life reset. Now, when you're trying to figure out what problems to solve first, whether you solve symptom problems or root problems, okay, you need to do a cost-benefit analysis, okay? And sometimes you don't want to start by rebuilding the whole house, which will involve having to tear it down first, which will leave you homeless. So that's a metaphor, but it's also very literal. Sometimes you start by turning off the gas leak or by plugging the hole in the roof for now, so we don't always start at the root. Sometimes it's too big. Sometimes we need to plan a little bit before we attack the root problems, but that doesn't mean we can't start treating the symptoms a little bit, okay? So, if the problem is urgent, for example, if it's a health, safety, finances, or housing thing, we might want to treat that symptom first, right? If you're emotionally flooded and need stabilization, you may want to stabilize before you attack the root cause, right? Root work would take time and support you don't have yet sometimes. So you might have to generate some support, get a support system in place before you attack that, right? Make plans. Sometimes it means saving up money. Sometimes it means, finding people who'll be willing to let you stay with them while you sort your business out. Like I said, life resets can happen for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of times, it's going to involve needing to start completely over. If you lose your job or if you have to quit a toxic job, you may end up without money. That may result in you not having a place to live, right? You see what I'm saying? So we have to prepare for addressing those big problems. Now, here's sometimes when we want to seriously consider solving the root problem first. If the symptoms keep coming back in the same form and they're just overwhelming us, there may be no alternative but to address the root cause now. If you've already fixed it several times already, you keep fixing the symptoms, but they just keep reoccurring, sometimes on a daily basis, there comes a time when you're wasting your energy fixing the symptoms, right? You may as well just go ahead and attack the root problem because you're still suffering, but you're not getting anywhere. Another time to work on the root problem might be if it's been draining you for years, not days. So the longer The more time and life and energy and money this has stolen from you, the more reason there is to go ahead and attack it today. It's one thing to realize this and realize it's been happening for 2 weeks, or to realize it's been happening for 2 years, right? So that you have a lot of lost time from it. I do think that this makes a difference because our time on this planet is finite, and we should get around to treating the root causes of our biggest problems sooner rather than later. So I think that the time elapsed is important there, okay? Now, it might be worthwhile to write this stuff down. So you can write like a root cause ladder, like you can write down what you think your root cause problem is. And then it's interesting, you can map your symptoms out underneath it. Like, what problems in my life are stemming from this root cause problem? And you might be really surprised how oftentimes there are huge clusters of problems in our lives that might seem separate at first, but we can actually tie them to a common denominator. And when you see it laid out like this, sometimes this gives you the motivation you need to go ahead and attack the problem. Sometimes it's really uncanny how related these things are. And sometimes, man, it's not easy, but sometimes it just makes the most sense to go ahead and attack the root cause of the problem rather than dealing with 20 symptoms, right? Like there's sometimes no way to address or help everything. Sometimes you just have to attack the actual thing that's causing the problems. Now, there can be a lot of fear associated with solving life problems, okay? And I'm not going to beat about the bush. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, friends. It's scary and it's hard. It's scary and it's hard to leave a toxic job that you're relying on for money. It's scary and it's hard to go to the doctor, get that medical diagnosis you know is probably going to happen, but you don't want it to be true. It might be really hard to end that marriage or relationship you've been in because it's starting to cause too many problems and it's no longer right for you. It can be hard to excommunicate the family members who are toxic for you, even though you grew up with them. Like, these are not easy things to do, but here's the thing, and this is what I believe, and this is what this channel is based on, okay? Healing is nonlinear. Not everyone's path is the same, but we all deserve healing, okay? Number two, you deserve another chance at life. Just because your life has gone down into this problem, quagmire, that doesn't mean that you do not deserve another chance. It doesn't mean that you should continue to live in that problem area, because you do deserve better. You should have better outcomes, and you deserve to do that for yourself. Don't think that you're a morally bad person just because when you try to fix your problems, you're probably going to upset a lot of people. You're probably going to upset people. You're probably going to make people unhappy. You're probably going to rock the boat. And that's something you deserve to do, because you don't deserve to keep living in the quagmire and in the mud pit. You deserve to climb the hill and get to a new horizon, a new beginning. You should get to create the life you want, or at least go down trying, rather than just settling for a life filled with problems that you cannot solve because you are not the cause of them, okay? And sometimes we are the cause of our own problems, and we should try to solve that then too, but at least that's us. At least if you are causing a problem, then you can actually change your behavior and solve it, but you often cannot change anyone else's behavior. And that's why big changes probably involve changing where you work, changing relationships, or getting out of a relationship, excommunicating toxic people, right? You cannot probably change those people's behaviors. And it's really important for you to know that even if you're facing a very hard life problem right now, I want you to know your story isn't over. I want you to know that, man, there have been times in my life when I have truly felt like giving up. It was so hard. I've been homeless before. I've slept in my car before. I've not had money for groceries before. I've had to work several days and nights in a row without sleep because I had to get money coming in, and I was so sleep deprived that I was dissociating. And it was so hard. But it's really important to know that your story is not over. You deserve a bright tomorrow. And even if it's going to be hard right now, I don't want you to give up on yourself, okay? Do not give up on yourself, because you deserve the life. At the end of that mountain, you deserve paradise. You deserve a life you can wake up and be happy and excited about. And that's what I want for you. So please drop a comment and let me know where you're at right now in your journey. I would love to hear it. And I try to reply to every comment. Thank you so much for coming back to the Life Reset Collective. My name is Josh. I will see you awesome people on the next one.